But then there's going to be the same way, like as a buyer, where there's houses where it's like, no, this just makes sense reducing. Like we're just,
Yeah.
we're not complicating it. We're reducing. Great if you get this higher amount. Great bonus, taker offer, it's lower.
Yeah. Hey guys, welcome back to Real Estateable. Today we are talking about the dreaded multiple offers that have come back, at least in our market and several other markets that we've talked to, agents that we know. And so only have one question for you. Has your buyer ever offered the seller tacos and margaritas to try to win the offer?
No, but I'm like, okay, are we getting to that? Are we getting like I feel like there's more desperation now
It
than
is.
than before. But I think it's because of a couple different factors we're going to talk about. So I think that there is more reasons now that it's harder.
Yeah. You definitely have to get creative in order to win these multiple offer situations. Before, when it was COVID, it was a little bit different. I feel like you could eventually win,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm starting to feel like there's no end in sight for some of my buyers and trying to
I'm
get them under
thinking like
contract.
tacos and margaritas for myself right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
That's what
definitely
I'm
the
thinking.
margarita for
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. I agree. Well, let's dive in a little bit more and check out the topic of multiple offers.
Yes.
Hey everyone, welcome to Real Estateable. Today's dreaded topic, we're sitting here talking about how we're about to be losing more and more offers to multiple offers. Are those back in your area? I'm like, why are they back in Middle Tennessee?
Yes.
But they are here. At first I was like, okay, it's under 300,000. It's a affordability kind of aspect because that's our new sweet spot. But then what price point did you lose this weekend?
It was between 650 and 700.
The multiple offers.
Multiple offers, and we lost to a cash offer.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's the problem. We're close to Nashville. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of cash buyers coming into this market. So,
Well, and overall though,
Yeah.
our offer was really strong.
I think so
And
too.
I told my clients, because obviously they're super bummed that they lost out and we wrote a strong offer. I said, you guys, this is the strongest offer that we've written so far, because Chaka, we have lost a couple other offers as well.
Mm-hmm.
But
They're slowly starting to listen.
But
Yeah.
they are slowly starting to listen, but it does suck because that house really was like perfect for them.
I know that is the worst. And I think that that's been the worst for like the last couple of years, like having
Yeah.
to have the multiple offer conversation. Now I'm on the listing side of things. Glad when we're talking multiple offers, you're maybe only talking less than 5. But you do remember when like we would have stacks? I mean, like
Yes.
probably 20 to 30 offers deep, and it didn't even matter the price point. Like it was like, the low, high, whatever, and like just some of the stuff. I'm like, okay, so we're not back to that. So keep it in perspective.
Yeah.
It's not that bad, but I feel like things are different though. Like that's the problem.
I just think it could happen in any price point.
Yeah.
Like it truly
True.
at this point does not matter, because those people who are over 600,000,
Mm-hmm.
it had multiple offers, and I'm also working with buyers who are under like 250 and under.
Oh gosh,
I'm
yeah.
getting consistently beat. And so we're talking today about different strategies that you can use to make your offer more competitive, and just different creative things that we've come across either on the listing side or the buying side to help you write a strong offer.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that like let's talk about the buyer first. Like
Yeah.
let's talk about the ability of buyers now with higher interest rates. I think we had people in the last couple of years that had money, that they still have that money, but they had money that they were willing to give to overbid, to pay more than the value on properties, to pay their own closing costs, etc., because there was a different affordability conversation than what we have now.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you think about somebody who was buying last year when the interest rates were 2 to 3%, well, their payment was much lower. Now the buyers are paying a higher interest rate and still having a premium price, really.
Yeah. Yep, premium price. And I just think that the conversation across the board is everything is more expensive too.
Yeah.
So that wasn't something that they were taking into consideration. So I do think that's important to understand that when we're sitting here in coaching our clients through the process on what makes the most sense, like we kind of need to shift the mindset that it's not like an over exaggeration of what you should be throwing. A little bit of a balance, in whether or not closing costs, appraisal gaps, etc. are there. So I think that the interest rates, the affordability, you have different payment amounts with buyers that are saying, I'm not really willing
Yeah.
to drain the bank to make that happen
Yeah.
with no nest egg for that. So
Well, and the other thing too is just educating your buyer that they don't want to shop at the top of their pre-approval
that's true
because
too.
you're the payment. Like you
Yeah.
may be pre-approved for a certain amount, but that payment's going to be you're going to be house poor.
Yeah. That is true. I feel like there's way more educating than I've seen over, the last decade of being in real estate, just more educating through the process, which I feel like I was saying the same thing last year. Like we're just educating, the client through the process, but I think that now we're financially conversation educating, we're slowing down the process and getting them connected with more conversations with the lenders, really educating them in that piece versus it being about the property and the process that we've been educating on as well. So I can't press the like button more than I can on that for sure.
Yeah.
So yep, absolutely. So what would you say? What is like one of your number one tips right now as you're like prepping through what to do in the offer process? So like you're talking through like, hey, here's all your options that you can do as a buyer. We're in multiple offers. We don't know what else is on the table. We don't know if we're up against cash, high, low offers, etc. What is the first thing that you're talking with your buyers on?
I think it just really depends on the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So, does this buyer have money for closing costs? If they do, I'm suggesting that they pay for their own closing costs
Yep.
and title expenses.
Yep.
If they do not have that and you need to ask the seller to pay closing costs, then I'm saying, hey, let's get a closing cost estimate from your lender. And then I'm increasing the purchase price to that amount to cover the closing costs at a bare minimum.
At bare minimum. Yeah. Yeah. And the other part too is I think that we need to be looking at more of what the seller is needing.
Yes.
So having that conversation with the other agent, like what are the goals for your seller to see if you can kind of marry up timelines, occupancy after closing, anything that might sweeten the deal for the seller. Because I've had sellers here recently that is like, timeline is number one goal. And I'm like, cool. Even if I throw you $1 million offer, timeline's your number one goal. Well, guess what? That just happened with that Kentucky property. Is I sent her that $1 million offer essentially, and her timeline kind of shifted on that. So I think that if you don't have the money to throw to the seller, let's talk about what are their other goals that you can meet, et cetera.
Yeah, I think you have to talk to the listing agent.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a lot of agents who don't do that and they just listen to whatever their buyer wants to offer. But you're trying to win. You're trying to win with the seller. So you have to know what the seller is wanting, needing, preferences, where do they want to close. You're trying to make this offer tailored to the seller that still works for your buyer.
Yeah. And it's not the numbers that necessarily.
It's not always the numbers.
Yep. I think if you're pretty close, that could be something that kind of splits the hair down the middle too, where it's like, okay, maybe this is only $1,000 more, but you have all of these other terms that make so much sense to the seller. That's probably going to tip the scale too.
And you talked about occupancy after closing. So a couple weeks ago, the buyers that are in like that 600 price range, they lost out on multiple offers. And I asked the agent, I said, what was, because the seller wanted occupancy after closing, which my buyers were open to, but they wanted the daily rate, to kind of cover the mortgage. And so even though the payment wasn't due and
hadn't started yet.
So I asked the agent, anytime I lose an offer, I'm like, hey, what did the winning offer have that ours didn't? Or where could we improve?
Tip.
Exactly. Talk to the other agent. You're allowed to talk to people.
And they're actually picking up the phone now.
Yeah, a lot of people answer the phone now.
They're actually answering their phone. 12 months later, now we're back to answering our phones.
Yeah. So the reason why we lost out on that one was because the winning offer wasn't charging a temporary occupancy. So they were letting the seller stay for free. And so I let my buyers know that. I said, hey, we came in second, but that first offer didn't charge occupancy. So the offer we wrote over the weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say they're learning.
We did not charge occupancy, but we lost to cash.
You're about to have a master's degree in multiple offers with these buyers. So I'm pretty sure you're about to graduate. You're about to get the acceptance
I hope so.
On that too. I think that was one of my pro tips today to talk about was making sure, okay, you lose, having the conversation. Now, will every seller's agent tell you the details of the offer or what the deciding factor is? Not always, but I think that that's your job to make sure that you're helping to help your
Hmm.
clients graduate, with a master's in multiple offers.
Yeah, and it just helps you write the next offer better.
Yes,
I
for
mean,
sure.
the offer I wrote over the weekend was amazing, but we just couldn't beat cash because it is a finance deal. So,
Yep. Yep.
and who knows, they may want to be a backup offer. I don't know what their timeline, um but moral of the story, know what the seller is looking for and
Yep.
needing and wanting and all of that.
So besides paying your own closing costs, besides increasing the price to cover the closing costs, besides different things that make sense for the seller, anything else that you would say? I know like the last couple of years we were doing home inspections for informational purposes only. I
Hmm.
feel like my heart just skipped a beat thinking about that again. Do you think that we're back to that? Do you think that that's something that we should be considering?
Honestly, I feel like if it's the one,
Yeah, you just need to
it
do
it really depends on
everything's.
your buyer. Like if they're like, "Oh, this is another one we're just like, about."
Yep.
But if it's like, "I can't live without this house. I'm going to be totally crushed if we don't get it." And you're willing to do whatever it takes, maybe you do a pass or fail home inspection.
Yeah. And I think that was a key point too. So like when I'm talking with my buyers and I'm talking about getting comfortable with this concept, especially because I feel like they're just financially not comfortable. Not comfortable just in the cost of living and then their new payments and the whole noise around interest rates. So having the conversation about not every house that you offer on is going to make sense with
Hmm.
this scenario.
Yeah.
But there's going to be some houses, maybe 20% of what we offer on where it totally makes sense. It could be making sense, for a variety of different reasons based off of the seller's presentation of the property, based off of the care and concern and upkeep that they've had,
Yeah.
based off of specific locations or subdivisions, et cetera. But give them permission to say, okay, I'm not comfortable with that with this particular property.
Yeah.
So giving them permission to feel not comfortable when it comes time to be like, okay, guys, it's kind of like the meme that you see where it's like, okay, we wait, we wait, we
Yeah.
wait, we wait. So you have all of those offers that you're waiting to go to that max revving on, and but then when that property does come, okay, then now we
Yeah.
go, kind of thing. So have that conversation and educating
Yeah.
through all of that.
And I mean, you have to do like, what your buyer is comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that you can also kind of tell if it would be okay for a home to be pass or fail. Now, we're not
Yeah.
inspectors and we don't know what's behind the walls, but you can tell when a home is upkept and if it's trashed by a renter and
Yeah.
it's for sale
And
now.
don't be afraid to be the expert in this to say, no, this isn't the house. Like when they get
Yeah.
like overly, I think that there's certain times where like, okay, it's getting close to arrival dates or it's getting close to the end of leases. It's getting close to the school year starting. It's getting close to these things. And then your buyers start to make really dumb decisions.
Yeah.
We need to be the experts in this to be like, okay, pause, pump the brakes. No, we're not doing that.
Well, and you don't want to have that conversation after
Mm,
closing when
mm-hmm.
you're like, "Oh, the plumbing doesn't work and the electrics, like my house is burning down. You said it was good." Like, no, you don't want to have that phone call.
Yeah, you can be like, "You're right, because I told you not to do that."
Yeah.
They can choose, but as long as you're advising in the right direction, for that too. So, I have one more thing. I don't even wanna talk about it.
Yeah.
Feel like with buyers not having as much money out of pocket,
Hmm.
reducing our commission. Ugh, I just said it.
No.
Ugh. But
Let's
I feel like, okay, we're kinda, like, progressively getting back into the abusive relationship of multiple offers, and I'm like I'm like, "Oh my gosh, is that what's coming next?" But I feel like I don't know. I don't know. Have you done that yet? On this little roll around, have you offered with reduced commission?
I did this morning,
Oh.
actually.
What
um
a coincidence.
I don't think it was enough. Again, this particular buyer doesn't have closing costs.
Yeah,
It's a VA buyer. So typically
yeah,
they don't have as much money saved up because they're doing a no money down loan. And most of those people, I feel like they're young. A lot of my buyers are first time home buyers.
yeah.
They don't have money saved up.
They
And
haven't made profit from a house coming from another state. They
yeah,
haven't yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, I upped the price to cover the closing costs and I reduced my commission. But again, it was multiple offers, and at this time, that's really all I could do.
Well,
for
I was
that.
also thinking about this because I have a couple scenarios, kind of similar scenarios, very much the market where exactly what you just described
Mhm.
is a thing. And I know that like when we were thinking about like I feel like the creativity down to tacos and margaritas
Yeah.
free delivered to your door for daily lifetime
Yeah.
use. I feel like when we're getting back to that point, one of the things with reducing commission is okay, so appraisal gaps, which we're not in the conversation of appraisal gaps. We have overbids, kind of the conversation of that being contingent on appraisals.
Mhm.
But with commission reductions, I think that step one for me is going to be okay, this is being used as an appraisal gap. So, in the event that this property does not appraise for that overbid to cover those closing costs that you
Mhm.
talked about, okay, up to 4 cents, you can reduce my commission. No, but up to a certain amount, you can reduce the commission to cover the appraisal gap. Because if you have a buyer that just truly doesn't have that money, um, and you're willing to reduce the commission, okay, pause. Like, let's not get crazy either. Let's say that that is based off of that reduction is based off of if it doesn't appraise at that higher amount,
Mhm.
to use it almost in that level. So before you get crazy, get a little crazy in the commission conversation on that. That would be a suggestion. Just thinking outside of the box. Take a note on that. But then there's going to be the same way like as a buyer where there's houses where it's like, no, this just makes sense reducing. Like we're just
Yeah.
we're not complicating it. We're reducing. Great if you get this higher amount. Great bonus, take our offer, it's lower.
Yeah.
So, oh gosh, I'm gonna be sick. We need to go take a break. I'm about to throw up. We'll be back in a minute.
All right, guys, we are back talking about multiple offers.
And reducing commission. Let's be
And
real.
yeah, we don't want to talk about that.
No,
So
we don't.
anyway, you can reduce it if it's right.
If it's right. But let's say I just don't want to be right.
Not
I
want to be
rather sit.
wrong.
I'm gonna sit in the wrong button. But no, you guys, we're working for our clients. What is in the best interest of
Yeah.
them? I try really hard to be people focused. Focus on the property, right decisions. I believe in that return coming back to us.
Yeah.
So thinking outside of the box, that might be the conversation that we need to have for sure.
Yeah.
But I think I learn a ton from Ashlee. I think that she is constantly growing, learning, progressing her business. So what is another thing that you have been doing as far as earnest money? What is the earnest money tip and trick you've been doing as well?
So if they have money saved up, I will do a higher earnest money deposit.
Yeah. So typical for our area, which is really crazy, $500 to $1,000.
Mhm.
Which I know some of you guys are gonna be like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
But for our like I would say northern Tennessee, southern Kentucky, 500 to 1,000 for houses,
Yeah.
350 and below is typical. You go down to Nashville, you might see a little bit higher, but we don't see like the 10%, the
No.
1% earnest money deposits. I know people moving to this area are like, "You've got to be kidding me. This is like a joke," which
Yeah.
it is. It is. So, what is a higher? If typical is 500 to 1,000, like let's put it in perspective.
I
What's a
think
higher amount?
well, I think it just depends on the buyer. Like
Yeah.
how much money do they have saved up? Is it if it's multiple offers, I'm suggesting going as high as you can just
Mm-hmm.
because you do get that money back. And it can be paid towards closing costs or whatever. And you still have that safety of the home inspection.
Mm-hmm.
So like my Nashville people, I told them 1%. I'm like,
Yes.
you need to at
Especially
least,
in that market too.
yeah, I'm like, you need to do at least 1%. So they're my 1% people. And then I have other people who are like 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 if they're like,
Yep.
but it really depends if they have how much money they have,
You're just
etc.
putting more weight into the earnest money conversation where that's
Yes.
just not a typical for us for our region. So I agree. I think that that is kind of a safe thing.
Yeah.
I also think that it kind of shows your cards. So you got to be mindful of that. Is like, okay, I have no money for closing costs. We're asking you for all of those. Okay, flip side, here's a $2,500 earnest money deposit. So
Yeah.
make sure that you're kind of taking all of that into perspective in the big conversation of that. And then, of course, contingencies, talking through contingencies and the refunding of that, it being credited to them at closing, etc. Having that whole conversation with them.
Another secret weapon would be non-refundable earnest money. Do
Mm-hmm.
you want to talk about that?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Oh,
You want me
I'm
to
asking you, like, do you want to talk about
I for sure
that?
want to talk about that.
Okay, talk about it.
Okay, so non-refundable earnest money. So I think that we want to make sure that if you are putting an amount that is earnest money that is non-refundable in the event that a buyer does not close, we want to make sure that you give them the opportunity to at least get through that home inspection. So I think for a I guess I want to say for a pro tip, but I really want to say for an amateur tip, you don't want to just like automatically go non-refundable and then you have offered on a lemon with no ability to get $2,500 back to be able to bid on another one. So if you're going to do non-refundable earnest money, make sure that you're saying that is uh, in the event of anything besides that home inspection. So get through the home inspection, but that would be another kind of weight to your offer. Like, okay, if all else fails and talk with your broker to get specific on how this should be positioned, but making earnest money non-refundable, I think that that provides a little bit of a weight to that. It's non-refundable if the buyer fails to close based off of these conditions. Broker advised for sure on that.
And then if they do close,
It comes
it
back.
comes back.
Yes. Yep, for sure.
So it seems really risky when you say it. Oh, you should offer non-refundable. When I think non-refundable, I'm thinking I'm never going to get my money back.
Yeah.
Like first thought, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is throwing it out the window. Oh my gosh."
Especially when you're like, okay, this is maybe like the third or fourth offer. You're like, I need that $2,500
Yeah,
if I have
exactly.
to go to number 3, 4, whatever. So I
Mhm.
think you need to be looking at the financing picture with the lender. You need to be talking with your broker. You need to be considering that this is not based off of the house. It's specifically based off of the buyer. And it might even be if you're kind of worried about appraisal, if it fails for any reason besides appraisal and home inspection, that would be another way to consider that. But think outside of the box. Okay, cool. More earnest money, but what about the non-refundable part of that?
Yeah.
I think so too.
What do you got next? Okay, so another pro tip we have um, is collaborating with agents in your office or
Mm,
agents in your market or different markets. But specifically, I would focus on agents that are currently in your market.
yep.
So find maybe the top listing agent, and just sit down and talk with them. So you're trying to ask, hey, what kind of offers are your sellers accepting? What are some of the terms that they're accepting or considering, or what kind of offers are you getting that aren't winning? Because the feedback from the listing agent or the listing side is how you're going to start to write more competitive offers.
Yeah. I always say that the best buyer's agents are the best listing agents because you get the insider tips on that.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling in a certain price point in a certain location, like look at the 6 month history in that location. Be like, okay, I have a 6 mile radius. Okay, do I see a listing agent over and over and over again?
Hmm.
It may not be in your office, but then also if you see, you have a leaderboard, at your office, and you're like, okay, Mary continuously is up on here, like. She has all these listings that are going under contract. I see that they're multiple offers, or they might not
Hmm.
even be disclosed that way. Just sit down and ask, for 30 minutes and a cup of coffee to kind of go over, okay, what is she seeing and what is it taking to actually secure one of their offers. But don't limit it to just in your office. I feel
No.
if you
Yeah.
can get an agent to kind of have that conversation with you, I think that agent relationships are so important. It should be something that you're considering, for sure. Start
Yeah.
in your office, but expand as much as you can, for
Well,
sure.
I know too when we do our CMAs, it will tell you one of the pages in our book says like homes in this neighborhood have sold for 101%.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of using that information like, okay, so none of the homes have sold really for 100% of the list price. Maybe we need to go 1% higher.
Yep.
Or
And I think too, we talked in a previous episode about RPR and using
Mhm.
that as a resource. Make sure you're looking and seeing like how can you better educate your buyers through this process. I think
Mhm.
sometimes it takes a couple losses to be able to figure that out, and that really does suck because sometimes some of those houses could have or should have been the one when you're considering that too. So
Yeah.
as much as you can be thinking outside of the box, if you guys have any pro tips that have been working for you. I'm hoping this is not an everlasting thing. I do think it's a great thing for a healthy market,
Mhm.
but I think in a market right now, we have lower inventory. More people are holding on to these investments, not wanting to upsize or downsize to different
Yeah.
interest rates. So I don't know that it's going to be something that goes away. So we really need to be perfecting how we're handling multiple offers and not considering it like we had, 12 months ago. Completely different conversation as well.
I'm just going to briefly mention another thing is researching companies and lenders who can help your buyers write an offer like it's a cash offer.
Yeah, like investment-based companies that basically turn your finance buyers into cash buyers.
Yes, that's like a whole nother story. I feel like a whole nother episode, maybe. I don't know, but
your Nashville buyers, how many months in are you on the home search?
Honestly, I just check my buyer's rep to see when it expires.
Okay, that's a long time.
Yeah.
AKA it's a long time. And I think that you have certain people, especially like once you get people into like this radius search of a specific school district, of specific size of home, a specific price point, when you get so laser focused, you don't have a choice but to wait for inventory and then hope that you've given everything that it is. So that is another thing to consider. Like, okay, they don't have cash. I've heard a couple times they're being outbid by cash. What can I do to help assist that? And there is definitely some companies, pros and cons of doing that. Definitely need to educate through that process. But kind of when you're in that circle of like, I have no other options.
Yeah, desperation.
No other options, and really need to present all of those. And it may not be something your buyer chooses to do, but making sure you're the source of information for that. For sure. So I think I'm done with this today.
Yeah, same. I think we hit like the basics.
Yeah.
Some pro tips, and hopefully you guys learn something from this and can up your negotiation game.
Yeah, we've been kind of talking back and forth for the last couple of weeks. We're like, is this a fluke? Is this really going to be something we should be talking about? We want to get ahead of that with you. If you guys have anything that you can be suggesting to help add to the conversation, we'll share that as a community to help grow, learn as a whole. Because I don't think all of these things are region specific. If it's happening, it might be in different price points, etc. But thinking through and outside of the box is really something we can do together.
Yeah.
All right. There was a ton of tips and tricks today that we went over, talking about multiple offers, a conversation that neither of us wanted to have, really hoping that that wasn't going to be something being brought back to the market. But I know across the country, so many of us are feeling the same way. So we want to make sure that we are delivering you the goods.
Yeah. So we talked about a few strategies to help you write stronger offers. Step 1, call or text the listing agent and see what is important to the seller.
Yes, seller priorities.
Yes, you want to cater your offer to the seller. Step number 2, we can talk about removing the inspection contingency. So maybe do a pass or fail if the house is in pretty good condition. Doing a higher earnest money.
Yep, for 3.
Yep. And then what would you say is number 4?
I think that making sure that this isn't not necessarily for the actual offer, but finding out why you're losing. So step 4, if all else fails, 1 through 3, if all else fails, number 4, go back and find out why you're losing. So that's more conversation with the listing agent. Make sure that you're having conversations with listing agents in and around your area, in your office, in your marketplace, to find out what is actually winning, so you can be the pro and help educate your buyers through this.
And that helps tremendously when you have buyers who don't want to take your advice.
100%.
So it's not coming from me. It's coming from the listing agent. And this is exactly why the seller did not accept your offer. And sometimes the truth hurts, but that's how you learn and grow. I
think that's been like almost like 100% success rate. It might be that it still takes another loss or two of hearing the same thing over and over again. But the ability to help kind of educate through the process, just make sure that you are doing that little bit of the extra step, circle back, make sure that you're finding out why.
Yeah. So let us know, message us, email us. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We also have our website that has a lot of free resources for you at realestateable.com. Thanks for listening. Share this with a friend. Give us a 5-star review, and we will see you next time.